about how to raise a psychic child, how to identify a psychic child in your family, and some tips on, what you can do in this type of situation. I meant to do this video like a couple years ago, but I don't think it was time then to put it out, so now it feels like the time. Again, I've had clients and people just randomly recently asking me about this, so I think it's an important topic to discuss. Before I get into it, please subscribe if this video is helpful or my other videos are helpful for you. And I want to thank you to all of my new subscribers, so welcome. Typically I do a lot of tarot on this channel, well, not a lot lately. I plan on getting back to that, so if you're interested in that, stay tuned. Okay, I'm going to jump right in. So on the psychic panels that I've done in the past couple of years, I have felt like there's a wave of more psychic children coming into the world, being born into the world. This has been going on the past few years, so you might have like a 4-year-old or a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old that is or has been exhibiting some of the things I'm about to talk about. I'm not sure why this wave is happening. I don't know. I think it's extremely interesting that it is happening. There's definitely just an influx in these types of kids who are just, ability-wise, just incredible. I mean, there's no words. Very powerful children. And I've had parents coming to me saying, I don't know what to do here because this is out of my realm as a parent. I don't know how to kind of help them or be a good parent to them when they are exhibiting these things. And so I personally have mentored some parents and some children who are going through this. I am a psychic medium as well. I grew up like these children have, so I thought, it might be a good time to start talking about this. So, okay, in identifying a psychic child, and there may be some things on here that I don't list, these kids are definitely a little bit different. You will notice a difference in them from maybe your other children, or just children that you've been around. So generally you'll know if something is different about them. But they are extra sensitive to their environment, to other people, to events that happen to them. They are empathic, meaning they can feel other people's emotions, other people's pain. I should make in my notes a note about boundaries. I'll write that down now so I don't forget. So these children are very much connected to nature and to animals. They like to be outside. The outside piece of this is like, it helps ground them out being in nature, and it also connects them to source. It's a little bit of both. I think it balances out their energy. That's why I used to be outside a lot when I was little. Dislikes conflict. That goes back to the empathy and sensitivity piece. They strive for harmony. So if there's any kind of arguing or conflict going on, they try and mediate and try and resolve it. They have an old soul. They're very wise. They say things that are very mature for their age. They might know something that they shouldn't know about human behavior, human nature, or spirituality. They may talk about their past lives. Don't be surprised if this happens if you hear them say, oh, I used to do this, or I used to be this, or this was my career, or this used to be my family, or this is how I died, this used to be my birthday, this used to be my name. Very, very common. These children who are psychic tend to have old souls, so they've reincarnated many times. I realize that not everyone is going to agree with the concepts and ideas and beliefs that I'm throwing out there. This has just been my experience and my opinion. So if this connects with your situation, then please keep watching. They may also say things like they chose you to be their parent, or they chose, if you're a relative watching, that they chose you in some way, meaning on another plane before they came here. I call it a heaven plane. That's how I refer to it, though. They got the opportunity to choose to come back to this planet, this 3D world, to learn things, to experience this life. And a lot of times they will choose who they want to be around, their soul group or their soul family. They will see spirits. They can interact with them or hear them. Sometimes this frightens them. Sometimes it doesn't. For me, it kind of went both ways. Sometimes I didn't care. It just depends on who the spirit was and what they wanted at the time. So if they come to you and say, I just saw a woman or a little girl on the staircase asking for help, they really did see that. A lot of kids like this are mediums. So a spirit will know, a spirit can identify a medium. A spirit can identify a psychic. Because we see them and they see you. It's like there's a door that's open, so there's an interaction back and forth. So a spirit is going to recognize a child who is a medium and go to that child or adult and may ask for help or may ask to pass along a message. Sleep disruptions, very common, having a hard time either falling asleep or staying asleep. There are many reasons for this. Because of the spirit aspect, if a spirit is coming and visiting them, a lot of times they'll get woken up by that spirit. That energy will keep them awake. I've had that happen countless times. Or they may dream about these spirits. Spirits tend to communicate via dream because it's kind of a midway point for a human and a spirit to interact with each other on a plane. That's the easiest to communicate through. Another thing is out-of-body experience. If there are children who are gifted in this respect, their spirit is leaving their body and traveling to other places. That can be scary for them. There's really no way to control this that I know of. I need to do more research on this. I've been asked about this because you have to harness it and control it. That takes some level of maturity, ability, control, I think, to be able to do that. So with kids, this is especially difficult because they're just leaving and going wherever. So I don't have any specific information on that quite yet. If I do, I'll make another video about it. But that's another reason why they may wake up crying or afraid, or they may see things that they can't explain. They will have a hard time explaining things to you. They will do the best that they can. Nightmares are very common, again, due to the spirit aspect. Past life memories, very common. A lot of times these kids will, sometimes if they're not talking about their past lives in their waking life, they are dreaming about them. They may dream about how they died in previous lives, or they just may dream about their lives in general. If they were afraid though, or if there was a trauma, they might be reliving that trauma, especially if the life is closest to this one, like if they passed away not long ago. But again, even if it was 100 years ago, they may still experience that trauma through their dreams. Past life regression therapy, hypnosis can help with that. These children tend to be more introverted, not all of them, but definitely a lot of them. They spend a lot of time alone because of their empathy and their sympathy. They have a hard time processing information and energy, and things could be too much for them. They may not like being around large crowds, large groups of people. If you say to them, let's go to the carnival, they may be like, I don't want to do that because there's too many people, there's too much going on. And it's normal for them to want to be alone. They can recharge their spiritual batteries that way. They can recharge their energy that way. If you keep them out around people for too long, it's just going to zap them right out. They'll either get grumpy or depressed, or they'll fall asleep. And if it's prolonged, they could even get sick. Illness, I guess I should cover that. A lot of psychics, mediums, do deal with prolonged illness. I know I've talked to a lot of others who have also, where there's a lot of like inflammation issues, like a lot of lifelong like colitis or celiac. They may have sensitivity to food. I do. Migraines. Sometimes, and I think it's because of the energy that we deal with. It's like sometimes we can get too much of it and then it manifests in a headache or something like that. What am I thinking? What else am I thinking of? Allergies tends to be a big one. Or unknown illness. Like, can't find a reason or a diagnosis for something wrong. Now, I'm not a doctor, of course. If your kids are sick, take them to the doctor. If you're sick, go to the doctor. I can't diagnose that. I get lost in my thoughts sometimes, and then I forget where I'm going with that. Okay, so prolonged illness, being alone. Okay. These kids can be creative. They might draw what they see, or they might express it in some other way, acting or dancing or whatever, music. I used to draw a lot, and that was a way for me to, again, process what I was seeing, what I was dealing with, process my own emotions. I'm a big believer in art therapy. As a side note, I do want to say I have a background in psychology, social psychology specifically. And I'm not a licensed psychologist by any means. I'm still in school. I've got 10 classes left. But if you take a child to a psychologist and a child starts talking about spirits and stuff, the psychologist may or may not take them seriously, depending on what kind of psychologist you take them to. You might want to do like a Jungian, like a follower of Carl Jung, who would understand these things more, understand the subconscious mind more. There's a debate about mental illness and spirituality, if these children have a mental illness or they're just psychic. So it's hard to differentiate sometimes the two. I would look for and again, I'm not licensed, so I would go see a licensed professional about this. But you would want to look for family history, if there's a family history of mental illness, what they're exhibiting, triggers for that. Just, you would have to go through all of that to kind of differentiate. But, I would personally, my belief, my opinion is that if they're exhibiting these other spiritual traits that I'm talking about, it's probably more of a spiritual thing. But again, you would need to talk to somebody. These kids could be near-death experience kids, survivors. So if a child maybe did not exhibit these traits when they were younger, but then they had a near-death experience, they died clinically and then came back and they had an experience on the other side and they can describe it to you. Near-death experience people come back most of the time with some kind of ability, whether it's psychic ability, mediumship ability. Some can play music when they come back, or they understand math when they didn't before, or they speak another language. So keep that in mind too if your child has been through that, where they didn't exhibit these traits before, but they are after a near-death experience. YouTube. IANDS, capital IANDS. IANDS, the IANDS channel talks, they record their conferences, so you'll hear doctors, psychologists, people that have been through this talk about these experiences, and even with children, and what their experiences were, what they look like, what's happened to them since they've been back. That's a whole other video, so we won't get too much into that for now. Okay, psychic kids, they try to help or heal others, especially if they have healing abilities. People who tend to be healers will have heat coming out of the palms of their hands, like all the time. That's a good indicator. They may say things that are spiritual in nature, that may sound like something you've never heard before. They are very observational. They can be very quiet. They do a lot of watching of other people. watching how they interact, their energy, things like that. That's pretty normal. They may have a hard time in school. I did. I had a very hard time in school because of the fact that there's a lot of other children. It's like too many people. There's too much focus on 3D, and hormones. Oh my gosh. Oh gosh, I'm getting into a bunch of other thoughts here. Okay, so adolescent children, especially girls, can, if they are psychic, they can produce poltergeist activity. Children and adolescent children, if they are psychic and they have repressed issues emotionally, can manifest psychokinesis manifestations, which would show up in your house, say, as shadow figures or darkness, dark energy. It's a manifestation of something that becomes outside of themselves. That is something that's very real. During paranormal investigations, which is something that I do, you're not going to get information out of a PK manifestation because they're not a spirit. They are an outside manifestation of energy, but they're not a soul, a human soul. And so you're not going to get them to say anything or anything. They just present a very dark energy that you can feel. Or see, even. So, hard time in school. They may be attracted to other things in the paranormal. I started reading about the paranormal when I was old enough to read. I started reading about spirits. The Loch Ness Monster was one of my favorites. But, say, Bigfoot or UFOs, anything that's beyond kind of our realm. Even stuff that's like lore and fantasy, dragons and fairies. Although people would say that fairies are real, I'm sure they are. They are in other cultures. And they may even experience or see sprites or fairies or those types of things. I personally have not had that experience, but I know in other countries that they do, and that's pretty common. Let's see. So they may be attracted to movies and books and things like that that are paranormal. So what to do about this as a parent or as a friend or a relative? The most helpful thing is to just be understanding. Be open to it, not be afraid of it, not to judge it. These children need to feel like they're not being isolated or judged or made fun of or dismissed, because they are seeing what they're seeing for a reason. Let them know that they can come to you. They might ask you questions. If you don't know the answer to those questions, try and research it. Again, YouTube, I go to, there's a wealth of information. Just do a general search on some things, pull up documentaries or whatever, and see what you can find out on your own, or reach out to another psychic to see if they have information for you, or another like spiritual healer or something like that. Don't force them into things if possible. If there's something that they don't want to do, like say you want them involved in sports and they do not want to be involved in sports at all, don't make them do that. Make them do something that they want to do, that they can express themselves. It is very hard on a psychic child to be involved in something with their time and their energy with something that they have no interest in, that they may be afraid of, or that they just don't want to do, that they just don't want to invest their time in. It takes up all of their energy. It makes them very upset. So try not to do that. Also be on the lookout, too, for psychic children who may, if they especially have had a rough life, they may fall into depression, addiction, things like that, especially if they haven't had any support as they were growing up as a psychic. I was depressed for many years, suicidal even, for many years of my childhood and even into high school, because because of trying to deal with energy, trying to deal with outside things that I was seeing and experiencing, not being able to have anyone understand what I was going through, that takes a really hard toll. So just be aware of that. Try not to make a big deal out of what they are able to do, or to bombard them with questions, or to tell everyone about this and your friends and, everybody. You don't want to treat them really like outwardly any differently than you would, say, maybe your other children. Especially, there could be a jealousy aspect going on. You don't want to have any favoritism towards this child. Don't put them on a pedestal of any kind. They are here to witness something, and they are here to experience 3D life on Earth, to learn things. For some reason, this needs to be part of their experience. For a lot of them, this will be the last life they incarnate to on Earth. So you don't want to put a lot of pressure on them, or just you don't want to discourage it, and you don't want to encourage it either. You have to let them experience it on their own. And you want to be careful about who you tell about this, because there's still a very big stigma out there on psychic ability and mediumship ability. You don't want kids in their schools to start, making fun of them or treating them differently. It's you want to just kind of keep that stuff on the down low. That's my opinion anyway. For me, it was a little hard because my ability would just come out in school, and my teachers would see it, and they would be very curious about me and would ask me questions about things that I would see and stuff like that, but it never got out of control or anything like that. It was more of just an observational thing. Let's see. How to help them. Okay. With the whole sleeping thing, now, with child psychology in general, it's good to set up a bedtime ritual anyway, even if they don't exhibit these abilities. So it will help them to know that it's time for bed, help them to wind down, get their mindset on it, and then know that it's time for bed. So it's good to do this, especially with psychic kids. My mom rocked me a lot before I went to sleep, or that would help me fall asleep. That was helpful. Sleeping with a hall light on, especially if I was afraid, or sleeping with a radio on. If you can put on some relaxing music, or a higher vibrational music at a certain hertz level, you can find those on YouTube as well, just to help them start to fall asleep. For the kids that tend to leave their bodies at night, or, if they're visited a lot by spirits, grounding stones, protective stones. The grounding ones are any of the ones that are black. So onyx, tourmaline, you could do hematite. Hematite would be especially good for grounded kids who tend to have out-of-body experiences. And then the protective stones, so amethyst, basic quartz crystal, or selenite would be good for that also. You can have them wear these stones as, choking hazard, I was just thinking. So if these stones are just kind of, if they're older, if these children are older and this won't be a choking hazard or anything, just have them kind of nearby, either like on a dresser or a nightstand. I've slept with them under my pillow. I've worn like bracelets or rings or whatever to sleep in, but again, just be careful with that. Say certain prayers if that helps. Let's see. Read before bedtime. Pick stories that are, happy in nature, funny, things like that, so that will put them in a better positive mindset, better positive energy before they go to bed. Okay, so know that you can only help them to a point. I think this is a big sticking point with a lot of the parents I talk to. They're like, I want to do this, but I don't know how, and how am I going to help them with such and such? Well, you can only help so much. These kids have to go through these experiences on their own. They have to learn their own lessons with it and how to control it and how to deal with it. They don't expect you to know how to do all this for them. There's a part of them that just intrinsically knows that they have to learn. This is part of their learning experience on Earth. They have to learn how to kind of control it. They have to learn boundaries. With any healer, any empath, boundaries is super important with the living and not living. They have to learn how to say no and not get taken advantage of by the living and the non-living. So don't feel like you have to do everything for them or have all the answers, because you don't, and that is not expected of you. So just know that they will get through this. They will take care of it. They will handle it. They'll get better at it as they get older. The more that they research it on their own as they get older, they will have more information that can help them with these things. Trying to think if there's anything else I want to add to that point. Oh, well, they will decide if they are going to repress this ability or move forward with it. We kind of get a choice. There's clients that I've had appointments with that I've talked to that have said, well, I used to be able to do such and such, but then it stopped, but now it's coming back again. So they've already had that ability. They've had it the whole time. They just decided at that time not to use it as they were growing up and to kind of forget about it. And so that becomes repressed, but then it comes out later. They may visit a haunted location or accidentally moved into a haunted house, or they may just see a relative after they passed away, see the spirit of them or whatever, and then that ability starts to come back out again. But there are kids that will suppress this and choose not to bring it out again, and that is their soul path. That is their choice. Whatever reason their soul is here for, they may just decide not to use that ability, and that's fine. That's totally up to them. Believe what they say. As crazy as whatever they may say, just take it seriously. You can even check into it. Don't make a big deal out of it. Just kind of probe a little bit on what they are seeing or feeling, or how they are processing it. Depending on their age, you can probably distract them from it and go do something else, or take them outside to play or something like that. The more you focus on this stuff, the bigger it gets. So try that first. Try distraction first, or listen to them and be like, it's okay. I understand, well, let's go play outside for a little while, and see. And if it continues or they see the same thing, then you'll kind of need to look more into that. Do what you can to make them not afraid. If they are having issues maybe sleeping in their room, you could be living in a haunted house, and then there's something going on in that specific bedroom. So if you take them out of that bedroom, have them sleep somewhere else and see how they do. If they feel fine, if they are much better, then great. Keep them out of that room, unless it's not as bad in the daytime or whatever. But don't force them to sleep in that environment because they're scared. Now, a lot of kids, of course, will want to sleep with their parents because they're scared and they're a certain age or whatever, but this will look different. This will look a little bit different. You'll recognize whether they're just trying to sleep in your room with you, or if there is actually something going on in their room. You could do a house blessing for this. You can contact a spiritual person in your community to come out and clear your house, or whatever you need to do for that, and that may also help. I'm a big believer in this, and this is my opinion, although a lot of people don't listen to me on this, because I work in the field of the paranormal, but I don't believe that children, especially psychic children, should go to haunted locations, like known haunted locations that are there for investigating. Because it does not matter how old you are, you can still get a negative attachment. And they are very hard to get rid of. I had a negative attachment that I got in when I was 12 years old, 13 years old. Didn't get rid of it until I was in my 30s. And that had stuck inside of me with me for that long. And had it not been there, my life probably would have been a lot different, a lot more positive than it was. So spirits on the other side don't care how old your kids are. They will see that they're psychic. They will try and attach to them. And children are very vulnerable. They don't know about how to protect themselves or what to do if they get an attachment. Chances are, if you're a parent, you don't know what to do if they get an attachment. And not only that, just the oversensitivity, overstimulation of what it would feel like to feel a blast of typically negative energy coming at your kid and how that affects them. Not only physically and spiritually, but also emotionally. I will give you a quick example of that. My parents were house hunting one time. I happened to go with them. We went into a house that my dad absolutely loved, and I was freaking out the whole time. I knew that there had been a murder-suicide in that house, in the basement specifically. I was probably 9 years old. I had asked to use the restroom that was and they directed me downstairs into this really beautiful finished basement. And I just started freaking out. I could feel things. I could feel something watching me. I knew that there had been a shooting in there, a murder-suicide. And I left crying, and my dad really wanted this house, but I was just freaking out because I knew he wanted it, and I'm like, I can't live there. I can't live there. And he was so frustrated. He couldn't understand what was going on with me. Luckily, we did not rent that house. Unfortunately, we've lived in other haunted locations. Our family moved around a lot, so I've had to deal with that. It takes a toll on you, especially as a child, and you're dealing with this, and maybe no one believes you, and you're trying to deal with the energy and trying to figure out what's going on, and as a psychic medium child, you feel very isolated and very scared. So listen to your kids, take that into consideration, but also try not to deliberately put them in situations like that. It is harmful for them. On that note, don't let them play with Ouija boards and other spiritual tools. I never touched a Ouija board ever in my life. I always stayed away from that. But, especially with a lot of the paranormal shows and spiritual shows out there, it's like that kind of behavior is encouraged, and they may see that and they may try it, and then boom, you've got all kinds of things in your house that you don't want. So just don't encourage that stuff. Keep them in the light. So, let them be kids. Let them play outside, under supervision, of course, but it's like, let them do things that bring them joy, that bring them positive energy. Other creative outlets would be, art, music. Let them do hobbies, any kind of weird hobby that they're interested in. Let them, if they want to do something that's a little out of the ordinary, let them do it. It's possible they did it in a past life. So, say they're like, I want to learn wood carving or something like that. So, or wood burning or whatever. It's possible that is something that they used to do. Let's see what else I got. Was that all I had? Amazing. That's all I had. We're at 33 minutes, and I talk really fast, so I apologize. I hope this is helpful to you. If I remember anything else, I'll probably make a separate video about it. But anyway, if you or know someone who's experiencing these things, please share this video, and please subscribe to my channel. So have a good one, everyone, and I will talk to you later. Blessings. Bye.